It's good to be back in Jerusalem. Welcome to Jerusalem. Here at Notre Dame of Jerusalem. On this beautiful last July day. And we've got some clouds in the story and in the sky. With the dedication of the tent of the presence. You have all this cloud as well here on the west end of Jerusalem, out to the west, out to the Mediterranean. People are beginning to wake up. We can zero into some of the features since we haven't been here for a while. The Dome of the Rock. And there's academic dispute about actually where the temple stood. Not 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, the first temple, Solomon's temple. And then there's the temple rebuilding after the return from exile, which is the second temple, but it's still called the second temple when Herod does a complete makeover of the temple. The temple that then the Romans destroyed. It was precious also to Christian memory because of Jesus' presence in the temple. As a little boy, baby, the story of Simeon and Anna. And then we have the accounts of his visits to the temple as a 12-year-old with Joseph and Mary. And then in his public life and the different pilgrimages. And then before his passion, death, and resurrection. And the beginning of that temple is in today's reading, with Moses dedicating what has been built exactly according to God's instructions, as I said. And then the cloud comes, and it's the signal, the sign of God's presence, which is eventually, finally, in the final analysis, fundamentally what we all want, God's presence. And God's presence is much more in His Word than in the bricks and mortar. God speaks to us. That's the location of God's presence to this day for us to listen to God's word and to respond. Our beautiful places of worship, like we have a beautiful chapel also here at Notre Dame. The altar area is protruding over the reception, and here you can see the apse protruding from the front of the building where the main door is underneath. And so we have beautiful chapels and churches and basilicas, places of worship, Crystal Cathedral, all these efforts to even the non-monotheistic, non-biblical religions have big temples, places, but most important is to be listening to God. And there He is very close to us. He speaks to us, His law is written in our heart. And we are temples of God as is finally revealed. Sometimes there are clouds also over our lives. We normally tend to think that God is far away when there are clouds over our lives, but actually that's when a lot of wonderful spiritual growth happens. a lot of deeper understanding about the mysteries of life, a lot of discernment. When we have great prosperity, we tend to indulge and enjoy, and we tend maybe not to discern, and we tend to almost rule our lives according to what we enjoy. And that becomes, in a way, what we worship. What our society revolves around, what we personally revolve around, what we eat, the pleasures in life, the indulgence of the eyes, the senses, the entertainment. But in the hard times of life, we turn again to God and say, come here, we need you now, here and now. Our life needs you, and we learn to distinguish. And many times we discover that new fads were empty, and they disappear very quickly. This is a nice moment. We see the Augusta Victoria Church all lit up here. Well, almost. It's almost aligned. If we go back to the corner, maybe we'll get a better look at it. We'll align it sooner. The angle. That's what the gospel is speaking about. Discerning the new and the old. Parents need to discern the right food for a baby, because when the baby was 3 months old, 1 month old, the nourishment offered was different. And now when the baby is 3 years old and 6 years old and 15 years old, it's a different menu. Discerning the new and the old. We're always called to discern. And especially then when it comes to the words, the philosophies of life, the ideologies. Because a lot of the words spoken, a lot of the fads culturally are not according to God's word. How well we do to be guided by God's word, because then we're walking in his presence, we're walking with him. Every step of the way we walk with God. Each step we walk, alone or with others, alongside others, the decisions of our life, the discernment that the gospel is asking. Because at the end of time, there'll also be a discernment. Those who are listening to God's word and trying to follow it. Maybe many struggled with God's word for years and decades, and we can't judge them. We can pray for them so that they'll open their ear, and also in the process we open our ear more for God's mercy and understanding, for his compassion, that he's a God of redemption, a God who wants to be close to us, God who wants to give us life to the full, life in abundance. So here we are in Jerusalem. Another corner of Jerusalem over there is Mount Zion, where we have the place of the Last Supper, a memorial to David's tomb built by the Crusaders. Cenotaph, we have the remembrance of the first apparition of the resurrection and other apparitions after the resurrection, and eventually Pentecost. The washing of the feet is there too at the Last Supper. Great mysteries of love, the revelation of God's heart, so humble, so kind, so close to us. Maybe one last spot, just there. We're looking at the Mount of Olives, all that stretch, and then we can zero in here on Gethsemane. That's the Russian Orthodox Church. And just below it, I can't catch it for you in the picture, we have the Church of the Agni in the Garden, the Church of All Nations. So we leave it like that for today, people. Welcome back to Jerusalem. Might be here tomorrow morning as well, God willing. And meanwhile, see you later, alligators. Just missed a bunch of birds that went by in front of me here.